table. Computer hasn't been touched in 5 days.
Dan, are you watching something?
I'm what?
Are you watching something?
The end game.
No, I'll turn it off.
Bishop.
Okay, sorry. We
No,
are streaming
Was a weapon and then fell
on YouTube now, so people can
Computer hasn't
view
been
I'm
this.
trying to find you. I can talk to you, but I haven't found the screen yet.
Yeah. On the bottom left, there's a little camera and it normally says start video or stop video. And it's got like a red line through it.
Yeah, I lost it. Just a second. I had it all up and then I lost it. I don't know where it went. Just let me find it.
That's okay. It normally disappears when you're not hovering the mouse over it, but then when it goes back, it.
Yeah, I've got it. I clicked on to show the screen and now I can't get, there it is. Okay, now I'm back.
Okay,
I see you now.
perfect.
Do you see me?
I do
Do I
not
need to
see-
kill my screen again or something?
Right now your screen's just blank. Can't see.
Okay, now how do I get the screen on?
Are you using, my only experience with a PC, and on the PC, I just on the lower left, you'll see a microphone that says mute and then a little camera that says start or stop video, or it'll have a red line through it. And then if you click it, it'll take that away and your camera should go on.
Okay.
There you go.
Got it. I
Perfect.
pushed that earlier and got all the spreadsheets or something but that's okay. I'm on now.
Let me just. Let's get that. Let's see, Dale's on here. I can't see or hear him though.
Yeah, my screen just says Dale, so.
He might be
No, you still got 5 minutes.
Dale normally calls in as well for this, and so he might be working on that right now.
You still got 5 minutes for everybody else to come on, so.
That's true.
You know, I got the notice just as I was trying to log on, something about a new screen, a new spreadsheet. Do I need to go fill that
Brian
out
had
right
asked
now?
Yeah, Brian had asked earlier that I just take the same one that we looked at last time, but I add some more columns per committee member so that they can take the current recommendation and then change it how they want, if they wanted to make adjustments.
Okay,
Personal
I-
adjustment to the recommendation.
I sort of had it up, but then I lost it, so
Yeah, sorry.
that's okay. I'll just go bring it up again. See if I can get it to come back up without losing everybody.
Dale, you there?
Wow. I'm here. I'll be back in just a sec.
Perfect.
You still haven't heard from TAF?
No. Let's see. Yeah, well, I did hear from Reggie. He emailed me. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up to see.
There we go, everybody. 6. Let's see.
Let's see. Dale's got his. Okay. Brian, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
What am I
See.
looking for on this spreadsheet?
On the spreadsheet, there's a column T in yellow that's got your name at the top and then abbreviated recommendation.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to change that now or?
Brian, you don't have to. Brian was giving the option, and he can maybe explain better. If you wanted to make adjustments to the final recommendation or the initial recommendation we had last week, then you could just take that and tweak any numbers if you wanted to move some funds around.
Okay, I'll wait till somebody else comes back on.
We could talk it through,
We will.
and I can add it on myself if you wanted to just tweak it and send it to me while we're
Yeah,
talking.
let's do it. That would be easier, I think.
Okay.
And if you could just be the one that takes the master, we'll just have people just kind of.
Well, I think because we got this spreadsheet at the last minute, I mean, I've got it written down, but I don't want to mess with the spreadsheet yet. I've already got it written down as to my changes if there was more money or whatever, so.
Yeah.
Okay, now I gotta figure out how to get back. Okay, oh, rats, what happened?
Brian, are you iPad 10?
Yes. I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, we can't see you, but we can hear you. And I just went and renamed it.
It looks like Karen's on.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Laura.
Got to grab her real quick.
Hi.
Now, just so you all know, we are recording live to YouTube so that people can watch it. Any of the public right now could go hop on and watch it on our YouTube channel. The previous ones, we were able to get that to work. So we actually just recorded it on my computer, but it wasn't live at the moment. This one is.
There, I'm back. Okay, so Scott and Nate.
Yeah.
And Clark, is he coming? Is he attending?
I assume Clark is, well, yes. So if
Carolyn.
we have,
And Cheryl Lynn?
I don't know. I didn't get a confirmation from them, so I'm not sure, but I'm assuming if they can, they will.
Huh.
Can anybody hear me?
we can hear you.
Gotcha.
Okay, great.
I have some questions for the end of the meeting when we get to that point about the report.
Sure.
Did we ever get any information on TAF?
No, they didn't say anything specifically regarding the funds. It looks like it was something they were working through, trying to kind of calculate what that would look like. You know, they have a lot of programs, so I'd imagine it'd be a little more
Yeah.
involved. I did I emailed them letting them, or just kind of mentioning the just that with the all the federal stimulus packages and other stuff, there may be things that they could look into, and really this is applicable for all the arts organizations. Maybe submit to get recoup funds for any lost revenues, just in light of the coronavirus.
Right.
You know, something that businesses and now even the local government can do. I'm sure 501c3s are part of that as well.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
I think we'll communicate that to everyone.
My clock says we're 2 minutes out, so we'll still wait a couple more minutes before see if Scott and Nate and Clark join us. We do have a quorum, so that's a good thing.
Is Dale there?
Gail is here. He's,
I'm here.
Okay, good.
Mm-mm.
Laura, are you using a computer, just a desktop, a laptop?
Yes, a laptop, uh-huh.
Do you have it set so that the person talking is the only one you see?
I have it set, so I can see him now. I just saw the arrow. I missed the arrow at the beginning, so,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you for trying to set me up, though.
Yeah. There we go.
we have Scott on there. I see Scott by audio.
He's connecting.
Good, good.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Scott.
Hey,
Hi.
Oh, still have a virtual background. Let me turn that off.
Background in your face. You've been ghosted. Well, by my phone, it's 5:30, so let's begin. The first matter of business was to approve 3 sets of minutes, March the 5th, March 31st, and April 1st. Everybody's seen those, and there's been several corrections made. We appreciate Nan's efforts in getting those out and out and out and out, but so
Go with the last version.
so I will accept a motion from someone to approve all sets of minutes.
I'll motion that we approve all sets of minutes.
Motion by Laurel,
Second.
second by Scott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, all the minutes pass. Okay, before we get into this discussion of finalizing some of these recommendations, Camden, if you report further on the email sent out about the funding related to the boat harbor, and also some of the feedback you got from the artistic groups that performed, to see if there are funds that have been unexpended that basically could be banked into the future. So explain some of those if you would, Camden, please.
Yeah, so for most of the organizations, see, I don't know who Becky is. Sorry, I'm also adding people into the meeting as we're doing this too. Okay. Hey, Clark.
Who's
We've got-
Becky?
We've got the Brady Bunch going here. We have 9 squares, either Hollywood squares or the Brady Bunch. Those, Clark, you are in either Greg Brady or the Florence Henderson spot. No, it's Greg Brady or Florence Henderson. You choose. You're on mute. Clark, you're on mute though still.
Also, Brian, it depends on how big your screen is. If it's wide enough, then it's like 2 by 8.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I've got 9 squares here, so Clark, you can be.
I think I'm Florence Henderson. Actually, I think Florence was on the top because Mr. Brady always looked up to look at it.
I'll look down at the rest of you and.
That puts you in the Alice spot, Karen.
There you go.
Just don't ask me to sing.
Well, I think we have everyone here. So I'll just remind you that this one, we recorded the other ones just straight to the computer just because I was figuring out the YouTube one, but this one is recorded live to YouTube so other people can view it on the city's YouTube channel. Just to kind of update, Brian asked that he had asked a couple questions in the last meeting that I respond to, and I was just going to update on those. I heard back from most of the arts organizations regarding how the end of the year for them will be. And most of them responded back to the Timpanogos Symphony Orchestra, said that they've already had their events are essentially done. Harrington and Alpine Community Theater said that they plan to use those funds still, even if it goes past July. They think that they'll be utilizing those funds. They think emails saying as much, which you guys received. And then I haven't heard specifically yet from TAF regarding that. They have a lot more organizations, probably a little bit more analysis, if you will, so that maybe some more time for them to put that together, but they'll let us know. Regarding my questions, which I emailed you guys, one was what's the timeline for the funds that we'll receive from the state, and I did look into it as part of the application, and we have essentially 24 months. So if the consideration for the park tax is to maybe split this over 2 years, that definitely would be feasible. The boat harbor funding specifically. Regarding the other question is essentially what will happen if the city doesn't get those funds. As I said in the meeting, it's hard to say. We're still kind of putting together the budget, and we actually were a little bit delayed. Essentially reevaluating the entire budget in light of this coronavirus, and redoing it based off revised expected revenues. But our capital budget in particular, we definitely don't have finalized. But it's a difficult decision to know exactly where the boat harbor funding would fit among all the other capital requests. I talked to our city administrator, and he said that he doesn't really have a finalized draft capital budget yet. And then even if he did, it'd still be a little soon to tell. Basically, though, if we don't get the funds for the park tax, we would just scope down the project to do less, or to do things at a lower quality, or not necessarily shoddy quality, but we would just change it around, value engineer it so that we can stay within budget and scope. So we just have to assess what that final dollar amount is to know exactly what we would be changing or cutting. That if we don't get park tax, that means we're leaving other funds on the table as well. And the matching funds. As I said before, we normally don't want to do that, and I would hope that the city wouldn't do that. I know in general we want to take advantage of any matching or grants that we have, but I also know that there's a lot of needs. As I said before, the ratio of available funds to requested funding is far greater in the city side than on the park tax side. So I'm just reiterating what I said in the email, but are there any other questions regarding this information or regarding the boat harbor?
I think that's really good information, and I think it makes a difference on what we do.
Sure.
Thank you for checking into it.
Mm-hmm.
No problem.
Now, if we could, I've asked Camden to revise this spreadsheet to put underneath each of our names the recommended amount we decided last week, and now what I'd like to do is go from right to left, starting with Scott, to say, okay, what numbers would you change? You've had a week to think about this, and maybe they don't change at all, but if so, what's going to happen is the changes will be highlighted in red, and we'll see where the changes are, up or down, to see what we do with the boat harbor and other sort.
If it's lower, if you want to go lower, then it goes red. If you wanted to go higher, it goes green. Just kind of help distinguish.
Yeah, we are both the green, so it goes. Can you go a little darker green than that? So you can see that.
Oh, change the green.
Are you saying, Brian, if we wanted to put more towards the boat harbor, then what would we change? What would we reduce?
Yes, it's got to come down to zero. So whatever you increase, you have to decrease something else to offset that. So it's got to be neutral in terms of the 917, 723 has got to be your bottom line.
And are we
So maybe
about,
Or the 920, really.
920, yeah.
so are we
maybe
talking
we should put in the
about
big
we
things
did-
first. Right?
Sorry, I keep talking over top of somebody.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking maybe we should put in the big things first and then fill in some of the others. I don't know.
In some case, I'm not sure if some people left most of it intact, except for a few of them. I'm not sure if anybody made wholesale changes or not to their sheet, but because I didn't make a ton of changes. Some may
I
have,
didn't either.
and so that's why I like to go down line by line.
Okay. Okay.
I did actually. I went through and tried to skim a little off of a lot of things to get it up to about 125,000 or 124,000. Thinking if we could do that, but then if we have the 2 years, then maybe next year we wouldn't have the library option, the library thing. So we would be able to commit a little bit more there. So maybe
Right.
I'm happy with the way it is.
So let's just go down. So Scott, you'd be the first one to go down, and whatever you change, just let Camden know what the change is and the ups and the downs, or if there are changes.
Do you want to do this like live, like you want to,
Yeah, just tell him what he's got the screen, and he'll just change those as you call them out.
okay, well, I haven't given
You
this
know,
much thought yet, so I don't know if you want to let somebody who's given it more thought.
Laurel has hers ready. Laurel, let's go through yours.
I have it mostly ready.
Can I ask
All
you a
right.
question first, though, before you do that? So are we talking about trying to split the 300,000 boat harbor into 2 years then? Are we just trying to get to 150? Or are we trying to get to 300?
I think it sounds like we can go to 150 to get it over 2 years. 300 would be probably too deep this year. We
Yeah,
couldn't. So if we
Right.
go to
I'm just wondering if that's our common goal to get boat harbor to 150. Basically, we just need to trim 50,000 out of somewhere else.
That's
except
right.
Part I,
Right. I have a question though, Camden. Do we need to get it to 150 this year? Could we do like 125 this year and 175 next year?
Yes.
Okay.
you know, I'd like to just express my opinion on it. I didn't make any changes. I went through it, and I think the 100 in the boat harbor this year, that I don't want to make any changes. I also talked to someone who told me there is grant money available for parks that you can get through the state. And so I wonder if they ought to explore that. Plus, if we have another year to get it, like I think Karen or someone said, we wouldn't have the library to deal with next year, and that would give us an additional 100 in addition to another 100 next year on the boat harbor, if we decide to do that. The other issue that concerns me too is the survey. The boat harbor was not even mentioned as a place that anyone would spend any of their $100. So I'm not sure the public has a high interest in that.
Thank you. So let's leave Dale's column intact, and then anybody else who's
Can-
column is
I can't see the bottom of mine, like down on the boat harbor. I know initially I wiped out a bunch of money there because I didn't know where it was gonna come from, but yeah, I should be at 100,000, yes. And
so right now.
that's what I wanted to be. Mhm.
So now we just need to fill in, because everybody has identical numbers based upon our recommendation last week. So now I want to see individually, are there changes that warrant discussion? And there may not be. But
And
Karen, what did you change?
I just added some of that money back to the boat harbor. I had initially had it there, then I took it off and then wanted to put that, at least the 100,000 back in hopes we could do the rest next year. And I didn't know.
Yeah, so, well, this is not your estimates from last week. This is the group's estimate that is everybody's column. So this is not what you projected.
Okay, so I had hardly anything left, and now I wanted to put like 120 maybe on the boat harbor.
And where would you take that from?
And I was gonna take it off from, I had put the Whitbit obstacle course. I was gonna pull that off.
Last
And-
week, there was nothing in there. See, that's,
Oh, so did I take that off last time? So
No, they-
then,
okay, let me explain what we're seeing here. This is not your personal,
okay, so I'm kind of confused on what I have to think about what I had. I don't have it on my, in front of me.
the blue column last week was what we came up with.
Right.
And here's our starting point. So now Kevin's taking
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Each one of
Okay.
our, so now we've taken the group recommendation, and now we're saying individually, we want to change the group recommendation. So what you're seeing in your column now is the group recommendation.
Okay, I
Changes,
see.
If you don't, you don't.
Okay.
And maybe
Well-
I can start and show you what I did on mine, just so I can maybe clarify. What I did is I went down, Ken, if you want to go up to, starting with the youth choirs, I went down 5,000 there. I went down 3,000 on the Wasatch Winds. I went down 5,000 on AF Symphony, 10,000 on the community theater, 6,000 on the visual arts, 7,000 on admin, and I went down 14,000, took that out, the scoreboard replacement off, and that comes with 50,000 that I added to the boat harbor for 150.
Okay, you went kind of quick. I'm at AF Community Theater.
AF Community Theater was down 10, visual arts down 6, admin down 7, and then remove the scoreboard replacement. And that's $50,000 that I added to the boat harbor.
Can I just raise a question? If we got 2 years to do this and we give them 100,000 this year,
Yeah.
then maybe the city can find 100,000 in the next 2 years. And then next year, all we'd have is another 100,000.
Yeah, and I know there are differences of opinion here, so I want to find out who would like to change it or not. And so I think, I've got one. Dale's
Okay.
got one. I want to do this.
I'll be quiet.
Okay, let's go to the rest of the group. Anybody else that wants to change what we submitted last week?
I would take 5,000 off everything as far as the Wasatch Winds, the youth choir. I would take 5,000 off that. I would take 5,000 off Timpanogos Chorale, Wasatch Show Band. And what was the other one? 5,000 off visual arts. I would take off what I put down for administration. I think I don't understand the administration, honestly. Someone needs to enlighten me on why we pay Reggie's salary or whatever we're doing. I don't understand that part. So I'd appreciate someone enlightening me on that, on why we have that as an amount. Can anybody explain that?
I would like to know.
I can-
also.
I'm confused on why we're paying the administration. If it's Reggie's salary, why are we paying that? And if somebody could enlighten me on that a little bit more. Because I would probably just take that off if it was me, so.
Well, I can speak to it if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Reggie's working full time, so I don't remember whether, I think his salary's about 60,000, and then there are payroll taxes on top of that. When you look at ACT, they don't show any salaries, but my
Right.
understanding is Mrs. Snyder takes her income out of the Valentine Theater rental. She's taken that out in the past. That's
Except
her
she doesn't have
salary.
that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then if you look at Timpanogos Symphony Orchestra, they have, I think she has 64,000 some odd in salary. I think that's what it's all about. I mean, when you have 8 or 9 different entities, somebody needs to manage that whole effort. That's the way I see it.
But in addition to that, they have to pay for their accounting and all of those things.
If they had money
Yeah.
for bookkeeping
Yeah,
in the
that's a
administration
part
thing.
of this administrative fee though, I think.
No, there's a separate one for bookkeeping. In there.
A separate request?
I think in the total of the admin stuff, it included about 18,000 for bookkeeping.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that's a part of it. They're, a variety of things, I think, but
Well, Okay,
So does Karen's equal the bottom line? Does that have we get all of her adjustments?
so I'm
made?
at like, what am I at the administration?
I might say too that I've had about an hour meeting with Reggie today. I got the concerns that the people had that I requested last week about TAF funding, and I had a long conversation with Reggie. It boils down to they're concerned about the need for TAF to do more fundraising, and the concern Karen expressed about the salaries. And I asked Reggie if he would write an email to send it to Camden and Brian for disbursement to each of you, indicating what his plan was to deal with those concerns. And I don't know whether he's had time to do that. It was just this afternoon that I met with him, but I anticipate that you'll hear from him. You'll get an email from him that will explain what they're working on to increase the fundraising. You know,
Okay.
most nonprofits have an overhead expense. I looked this up on the internet, and it runs from 10 to 30% of their revenues. And so that's what Reggie's trying to do, is increase the revenues so he gets the administration expense down within that range.
Thank you, Dale. Now, and does anybody else have changes to what was recommended last week? If so, speak up and we'll just modify this and then just have more
I
discussion.
think I've decided that I like it the way I have it, if we have the 2 years.
Okay. So Laurel stays the same.
I can give you mine.
Hmm.
You ready?
Yeah.
Matilda Christmas, I'd go from 35 to 20 or 30 to 25. Book Fairy, I'd go to 10,000.
No,
Well, he can say his part though.
Mine. And then I would take the scoreboard off, 0, and go to, this is an exact number, so you can round it, but it's basically about 125.
Okay.
I have a question for Camden. In essence, Parks and Rec, if you look at it, at least setting the scoreboard aside for a minute, in order to get $100,000 to the boat harbor, everything else on Parks and Rec, I guess also setting Art Dye aside since that's a given, is a 0. So does the Parks and Rec committee feel this strongly about the boat harbor? I mean, I know there's matching money and all of that stuff, and I hear that, and I completely get that. I also hear what Dale's saying about, you know, most of the public hardly know there's a boat harbor, and maybe a few of them have been there once or twice, but very few use it. It is going to be a great thing, and it'll certainly add to, and I think if it's promoted and once it's discovered, it'll probably be used more. But we're putting all our eggs in that one basket in order to get that matching fund. So is that what the city and the park committee would like to do if they have to give up everything else?
Yeah.
Including the bathroom for Quail Cove.
I know that one's a hard one for me to give up, is that bathroom, because I think it's going to be more needed than the boat harbor this year, quite honestly. But
Yeah, I mean, all these needs are there, and one of the fundamental reasons we even have this park tax among all the other entities that can benefit from it is these are the types of things that just weren't getting done ever on the city side because of the funding for it. The boat harbor opportunity is more of a recent thing that we wanted to capitalize on. And you're right, the boat harbor as it stands right now is not something that residents are lining up to go visit and participate in those things, and understandably so. It's the city, we're not necessarily promoting it as such or anything. I think that narrative will change dramatically once these improvements are made. It'll become another tool in the recreational toolbox. It'd be something we want to promote and utilize. I think it will have a greater presence in the perception of the community. And so yeah, no one sees it now.
Do you think the perception of Utah Lake, which isn't stellar, like, do you want to go to the beach and swim in Utah Lake? Some people just have a historical perception that Utah Lake is nasty, and
I agree.
it's there. I've had the perception myself until I've interacted and been educated a little bit on it. And so I actually feel a lot more confident and comfortable using the lake.
I've spent time water skiing on the lake.
Yeah, but the average person, the average person, as soon as the words algae bloom are in the news, they're like, well, that's it for the lake. We're not touching that anymore.
yeah.
Right, right.
And so there are the counties willing to fund the grant that they are for our Bow Harbor speaks to an overall initiative from the county as well as the Utah Lake Commission to educate the public on the reality of these things. Yes, there are algae blooms, but they are not impacting the lake as a whole, and it's not preventing people from recreating on most all of the lake for most of the summer. And so as part of all this effort, there's going to be a communication plan, not just from the city, but from many other entities as well. And it's just something we'll be vigilant on and consistent with to kind of help overcome the media's education efforts, which have been somewhat negative, to kind of create more hype and concern than really needs to be there for the lake. And so
we heard from Clark on the city council, if there is an opinion on this yet. Does the city council like this idea of putting it all towards the boat harbor instead of any of the other things?
I don't know, Scott, if the city council has talked about this in any length. We know that the grant has been made available in a presentation from Derek, but that was just prior to the whole COVID thing. And so I don't think we've sat down and said, okay, are we sticking all our eggs in one basket? I think everyone acknowledges that it is something that we would like to do. There is a number of factors that go into this. There are people that are entertaining building skating rinks down there. There is one development that has talked about restaurants and everything right on the water. There are some enhancements that have been spoken about, and probably as recently as the last 6 months, of what might happen down there. But as far as the city council coming out, really putting a stake in the ground, that hasn't happened.
I just find it interesting that, and I'm not against it, I'm not trying to speak as an advocate against, but all of us came into our initial recommendations with 0 on the Bow Harbor except Nate, I think. And Nate made a well-reasoned and passionate plea that this is an opportunity we shouldn't miss. And I think it was very persuasive, and I think has a lot of reality to it. And so we've been persuaded that, I don't want to say persuaded like it was against our will, but we've gone this direction mainly because it's unfortunate to leave a bunch of matching funds behind, right? And it's a neat project, but we didn't start off with this recommendation, and we all have this survey in the back of our mind about what the public said. And so I'm just wondering, if we go to the city with this 0 across the board, I have 0 on every Parks and Rec thing except Art Dye in the Boat Harbor now, is the city council going to feel like we did our job, or that we just lobbed it all in one spot? And
I think that's a fair question, Scott. However, I think the city council holds this committee in pretty high esteem. So I don't think anyone's going to believe that something was done capriciously or without a tremendous amount of thought and debate going back and forth. Plus, I am there to say, I've been a part of this discussion. in all of these meetings, and I can help assuage a bit of that as well.
And I'm not that concerned that I said that they think we didn't do our job, and that's probably not the right way to say it. But
no, I think they know the study and the time that goes into that, and so the recommendation would come back, and it would be justified purely from the fact that it comes from this committee, which I think for the most part the council believes is done not entirely, but very objectively. And so with this, I think the city would love to be able to take advantage of those funds. I mean, just as a rule, and Camden can speak to this, but just as a rule, anytime the city can get matching funds, whether that's from MAG or for the CDBG grants, or anytime we can maximize the investment in our city's infrastructure or things that we believe will be of benefit, the city just automatically does its best to do that. With trails, with infrastructure, with whatever it might be. The boat harbor has had potential for a number of years. We all talk about the algae bloom. If you're not a boater, then Utah Lake means nothing to you. If you're a boater, try to get a spot to park in down there on a Saturday, algae bloom or not. I mean, it's packed. And American Fork could be even more packed. But even I will go to Linden because there's just so much more room. There's 2 ramps. And so these improvements will make a difference. Are they going to rank us up so that we come up on the survey? I don't know. Maybe if there's an ice skating rink down there in the winter that's facilitated as a result of this, maybe it would. But this is all conjecture. That's why we're in this process. We look this over. We make the best decision we can. The city council has given no clear direction. Cam, is that true or false?
Yeah, if I'm understanding this, Scott, you're kind of wanting to, the best you can, kind of get a feel if what your guys' assessment of all these recommendations are somewhat in line with what you think council would feel about it. And Clark, you can't necessarily speak on behalf of council to say, yes, I council agrees with how you're treating parks and recreation and the city projects. But maybe you could speak to yourself, you personally, if you are okay with this assessment, or you're kind of feeling like they're going, the community's heading the right direction.
I think it's headed in the right direction. We found out with the 2 years. I would like to take advantage of it because now I haven't boated on Utah Lake for probably the last 3 or 4 years, but I think there is potential for development. The only spot that we have available left is down there. We're talking about everything from the Vineyard Connector going down along the north shore of the lake, as opposed to coming up through all that valuable property. So I think there is much to be considered beneficial in making these updates to the boat harbor. Fall on a sword committed, probably as close to this as I am to anything. With Art Dye being nearly complete, that was one of my big things. I feel like the 2-year approach we're taking with the 100 to the 150 investment from the park committee, I think that's fair, and I think that's a good spend of this money. So. Yeah, I do feel like it's going in the right direction.
I have something to say. Go ahead.
Just to speak on the park committee, the park trails committee. When we put together a lot of these projects, the boat harbor actually wasn't part of it, part of the discussion. And so it wasn't necessarily the top one. But it's, again, this is an opportunity with the county that came really the beginning of this year, whereas all these projects were put together working with the Parks and Trails the end of last year. They had the trail, the Quilco restroom as their top ones, and the playground as well. They often talk about wanting a nicer or better playground somewhere in the city. But so those 3 with, I don't know which one would be first, but the restroom and the trail would be the number ones. But again, that was when the boat harbor wasn't part of the discussion in any real earnest capacity. But I just wanted to convey to you what their priorities were.
The reason I think we should go with the boat harbor is this: if TAF or someone else came to us and said, we have this much money committed if we can match it with the money you give. I like to look at the idea of the matching funds, of people going out elsewhere and seeking some of the funding.
I agree. It's hard to leave funds sitting on the table and that amount of money. I think we're foolish. I'm not a big, boater, and I don't use the lake much right now, but the idea of matching funds, I think we can't ignore.
I just want to
But I
make,
think the city's gonna have to do a sell job on the whole thing.
I just hope we're not buying something that we don't
I
need
know.
because it's on sale.
I know that someone's gonna have to do a big sales job with the.
I don't
Nate,
think they will.
I don't think so.
Hey, Nate, you were the strongest proponent of this. Let's hear from you.
Well, on the
Okay.
boat harbor, the plan is adding a beach for people to go to with the sand and everything. That's going to draw people, particularly with kids, just to go, hey, I'm going to the beach today type of thing. So I think that's
It's
going to
well
draw
done,
people.
and
Even if I don't have a boat, that's going to draw somebody to go down and play in the water on a beach.
You go look at Tibble Fork on a weekend.
Yeah,
or
that's what I was
anything,
just thinking, but
It's
Yeah.
crazy back. So, I mean, if
Think
it's
about-
well done and the water's,
Let's give Nate a shot here. Nate's the strongest proponent. Nate, let's give you some.
go Nate.
I think Clark pointed out something that I've thought about for a long time. When you look at land that is available for development in our city, we only have so much of it left. And that tends all toward the south and toward the lake. So I think any opportunity we can get to develop our presence in the south part of town, especially on the lake shore, it would be money well spent, because the development that's going to happen in that quadrant of our city is just going to blow up. And when the Linden Collector comes in, that's going to just even enhance it even more. Point number 2, the lake isn't going anywhere. The amount of interest from the population to make this lake work for everybody, I think, is only going up. Those of us with long roots here, we all remember the steel mill and all of those things around it. But I think it's just going to blossom as development encroaches more on the lake. So for us to have a strong opportunity here with the lake and the boat harbor, with a venue that is going to be exceptionally well done, only makes more sense. Going to the 2-year option, being able to spread this out over 2 years, I think is an awesome opportunity here, that we're not having to put all of that money up front, that we can still fund these other venues and opportunities. They're not left with nothing. They have something, which also gives them an opportunity to springboard and increase their productivity and efficiencies, as Scott well said in his letter, his email to Dale. So I think this is the best of both worlds, and I hope we can make it work, because it's an awesome opportunity.
How would you fund it? What would be your funding amount for
You know,
this year, and also where would you take that from if it changes?
Brian, to be honest, I didn't come up for air until 5 minutes before this meeting started. I've been head down all day, so I would mirror what you did on yours. I think that's an excellent choice. So I would mirror what you did.
I would make a comment. I agree with what's been said, but I think having park tax take it all is a mistake, taking it away from the arts and culture. And I think we can stay with the 100,000. That's my feeling this year. And then we can look at next year. We could do the whole 100,000 next year, assuming we have similar income. And the other thing too, it gives the city the opportunity to look at other ways to raise part of those funds. As I said before, the city could put 50,000 in their budget this year and another 50 next year, and then Park would take the other 100 next year. That's my feeling. I feel like it's better to spread it among more entities than just have the park tax taken off.
And the reason my cuts went deeper into TAF is because I'm looking at last year or the current year park funds that are unexpended, saying they may have 4 months that they can bank a good portion of that. So I'm thinking that's the third or fourth of their funds that they're not spending on directors and other things. So if they're banking that, and they should be, that gives them a little bit of a tailwind going. So I thought I don't feel bad about taking some money away, the 36,000 from those current things, because that's only 10% of what they got last year. So I thought if they're saving a quarter to a third of last year's stuff, that's well in excess of the 36 I'm taking away. So that's why I went deeper into the TAF discounting to come up with the extra 50. That's kind of my reasoning for what I did in reallocating those funds.
My reasoning would be the same as Brian there, why I would take a little bit more off TAF, only because I'm hoping that they have some money untapped that they haven't been able to use that could be allocated for next year and still have money in their pockets.
It would be nice if we knew that.
Yeah, we didn't get a report from them, so it's hard
Well,
to know, but
It's hard to go to 9 groups and get an answer back
I
really
know,
fast.
I know. I'm just saying it's hard to know how much is going unused at this point, but
The
But you-
logic says that
It's not that big of an ask, guys. Come on.
Not.
It's not that big of an ask.
yeah, well,
They should know this like the back of their hand. They should be able to
Yeah.
come up with this. We've been asking for this for years. That's all I'm going to say. I'm done. I promise.
even without the number, logic says that they've gone several months without production.
right, right.
And so that's got to be money that's not been expended that should be able to roll forward.
Can you roll
I
it back up a little bit, Camden?
I'm kind of lost
Thanks.
on what our numbers are now.
I'm just looking at Brian's numbers real quick.
Well, I haven't filled any in at the moment, but I agree with what Brian put in as well. Like Nate said, I just barely opened up my computer and saw this spreadsheet that I was supposed to fill out. And I didn't even look at it till 5:30. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with what Brian's recommendations are.
I like it, except for going back up to the top. Did we take 5,000 off of the, yeah. Oh, you left it at 30. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
yeah, I'm
I'm okay with
One
that.
other thing, we're cutting the arts at less than half of their requests too. So you have to consider that. When you say they have money to carry forward, if you're giving them less than half of what they ask for, they'll need that.
But they got 335 last year, and I think this would give them 220 something. So it gives them about two-thirds of last year's ask. But I'm thinking they still have a third that they possibly could be banking because of the 4 months that they don't have productions and rehearsals. So I'm thinking, they asked for a lot last year and we gave them 330. They're asking for a lot this year, and we're at 250 something now before the cuts that are suggested. That's what I was
That's
thinking.
before the
Yeah,
cuts
well,
or after
all
the
I'm-
cuts?
What I'm saying is they're getting less than half of what their requests are.
Yeah.
But rec is getting none. Almost.
Well,
Other than the park, other than art guy, which is mandatory. There's nothing we can do about that one.
yeah, but it's
So
still, they're
technically-
getting it.
Park and rec is getting 100,000.
And art dye is a crown jewel that you carry the rec for a while, because that is going to be beautiful. It looks beautiful now, but and
Yes.
that will carry the day. So I don't feel bad for rec at all.
No.
And the other thing is, I mean, I'm very supportive of the arts and I'm very supportive of TAF. But the other thing is, we've been telling them for 2 years, we needed to see some matching funds, some other things.
Maybe this would be an incentive to go
I'm
out and actually
wondering,
find the
you know,
funds.
But I do think they're starting to get things a little bit more in line, but.
I think they're
yeah.
improving, but one thing I mentioned to Dale is I had a little heartburn that they added one more program this year to make 9 programs. And my feeling is they keep adding the programs with no path of funding them. And I feel like if they're going to add more programs, they need to have some kind of outline of how they are going to fund them. I just think to keep adding programs with no funding possibilities in place is, I have a little heartburn with. I totally support what they're doing, but that was my only thought, is they keep adding more programs with no path of funding them.
Brian,
So,
oh yeah. Brian, I
That's
have a
a-
question for you.
Sure.
Is there a reason that you're funding the symphony higher than you are Wasatch Winds?
No, I just took discounts from all this. There was no
Yeah.
reasoning.
It-
Then
It's
what
a
I- what I
question I
did-
wanted to ask from last week. I don't see that the symphony has any more expenses or any more whatever than Wasatch Winds does. I think they do a similar number of concerts. They have, I think we should fund them equally.
Well, I looked at.
They have this, let me say something about the symphony and the Wasatch Winds and the Wasatch Show Band. The symphony has about 2,300 attendees, and the Wasatch Winds has about half of that, and Wasatch Show Band has about half, maybe a little more than half. So that's the reason I
Okay, all
see a
right.
difference in the funding.
And what I did, I also took I like the relationship between the expense that they incur and the income that they generate. And the chorale, the show band, the winds, and the youth choir all generate very little income, but they have a lot of expense. Like, for example, the youth choir, the expense is about 17.5 times the income. The winds is 11 times. The show
Right.
band is 12 times. The chorale 10 times. So I'm thinking, I rewarded those who have more income relative to the expense than I did those that did not.
I did too, especially I thought the Vivace thing was pretty impressive, what she's done with her
Yeah.
I
finances.
do,
That's
So-
the most efficient. They are the ones that generate the most income relative to the
Right.
expense.
right?
Okay, that was just a question I had. I'm okay with it.
Okay, so that brings us back to, we've got a range of recommendations. We go from keeping it to 100 up to 150. What is the desire of the group at this point?
Does your 150, but Brian, whatever you put in here on the thing, you put 150 in for the boat? And
Yes.
that
Right.
equals, and all of the other changes that you have made, that will equal the 920 that we have?
They made the 917, whatever was from last week. I didn't, there's 2,000 left over, but I took whatever last week's number and just made that neutral. So whatever I took away, I won $50,000 to the boat harbor, and I took that from the others to equal to 50,000. So it's 917. So it's 2,200 and
Yeah, I see that. Go back up again. So you're saying 150 for the boat harbor, right?
that's the 2-year split. That's where I would go.
150,000 for the boat harbor. I like your figures. I think they're logical. They, next year we can fund the boat harbor the rest of the way, or maybe the city will be able to come up with some additional funds to help out. We won't have to go quite the 150. The city could come in with some more in-kind funding on labor costs or the asphalt and all of this stuff. So I like your figures, and Camden, you can change mine over to what Brian has suggested as well.
Well, Nan, I thought you brought up before, didn't you, that next year we're not going to have the library. That project's going to be done.
I realize
Which
that. And
theoretically, it frees up those funds for the library to go somewhere else. So
Right.
I think we're on a good path at 150. I really do.
I do too.
When I was originally doing it, was trying to give him close to that. I was trying to give him the match to the state, the 146 or whatever it was. So I'm okay with it.
If this wonderful quarantine and the virus and everything gets over with, and we end up having a little bit more than 920,000 to dedicate for funds, is there some way we're going to put a priority list as to where we'd like to have the funds go that's extra? Or are we just going to wait until we find out and let the council come back to us and say, okay, you've got this 50,000, where would you like to put it?
Let's do that.
Yeah,
I think
that's
the
what I think.
latter. I think the latter is probably
Yeah.
the best way there, Nan.
Just let the
Right.
council come and tell us? Okay.
I agree.
Other thoughts?
Typically, any excess funds in a given year beyond what we were budgeting to gets rolled into the next year. And so if we have a bunch, we'll come back the following year and have that much more to expend.
I thought we legally had to use it within the year.
Yeah.
You legally have to distribute the funds, the entirety of the funds, each year. But there's, we have a cutoff date for when, because we have to process applications and get them out. Really, we're saying, okay, the funds that we're not expending are the funds that are collected in the last month or the last 2 months. So they are being expended within a 1-year period.
Okay, thank you.
And Laurel, where was Laurel and Karen? See, Karen, what was your vote? Funding the boat harbor, 120?
Yeah, that's where mine was, but I don't have heartburn if we can go 150, but I just didn't think we could go that high. So I was kind of playing middle of the road there at 120, but.
So we have three, let's see, so Brian, Nate, and Nan. Laurel, you were where? Also, and Laurel too, at 150?
I'm good with the 150.
So we have a quorum at 150. So the three of you others.
That's fine.
But let's ask the question, can the others live with it?
Yes, I can live with it.
I think
it's
that's
fine.
important.
I don't have strong feelings on my other cuts. I always felt like I understood the ACT proposal a little differently, and that lower funding there would still allow them to do their functions. That with city participation without in their proposal, I think I understood differently. That's why I took a little bit more out of that, but I don't have super strong feelings, and I'm not against Book Ferry. I'm just I was looking for some places that people could trim a little bit down to closer to maybe half their proposal, and that was one. So I could be fine. I don't have strong feelings in what I've got there right now.
You can come out and say you're anti-book. That's perfectly fine.
I've been the strongest advocate, I think, for the children's room. Not the strongest necessarily, but I've been a strong advocate for that because I think that's a great
Me too.
project.
Yes.
And
Agreed.
Dale,
Yeah, we all agree on that.
Dale,
Yeah,
can you live with it?
I'm just used to getting beat, so you do what you want. I'm saying where my feeling is what I've already expressed. So you can
Okay.
you've overruled me, so that's okay. I'm not a sore loser.
So what is our final numbers looking like? I'm confused a little bit.
Yeah, go over to the final column and let's see where we're at.
Where are we at? Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
where we're at.
We need to go through it and find out where we are.
well, it sounds like you need to paste Brian's in the final recommendation and
Just-
call it.
Yeah,
good.
Brian's.
Call it. Okay.
So we still have about 2,500. You want to put that back into something so that we're just right at the available funds?
For sure, I think we should put it back into something.
I do too.
Yeah, let Dale decide where it goes.
I
Dale,
think that's a great idea.
That's a good idea, Dale. Where do you want $2,000 to go?
2,500.
2,500, yeah.
Oh, let's put it back in the symphony.
Okay, we're balanced.
Okay.
Okay, now, Laurel, you had questions about the memo?
Yes, I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask you guys before it. As I'm putting this together, do you think it would be sufficient to make a recommendation about why we support TAF in general and TAF and all of the programs that go with it? And then just list them under that recommendation with the amounts we've recommended? Or do you want me to do a separate one for each program? Because I think that what we're saying about each program is going to seem rather
redundant.
repetitive.
I would
Yeah.
do the first thing you said.
I would too.
Is everybody
Fine.
okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and then let me read my other notes here. Okay, should I say anything about, just say we're gonna recommend this much for the boat harbor and anything about next year, or just leave that off?
I think just explaining that we're looking at it as a 2-year recommendation, funding partial this year and the other half next year.
And partial next year?
Uh-huh.
The rest of you agree with that? What do you think?
I think we say that is, you know, the current intent. I want to see it happen, but I don't think we.
I don't want to make a commitment.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We can't dictate it, but.
I think we just say our intent
Right.
was, by virtue of what's happened this year, is to fund that in a 2-year block, and hopefully there can be things made up. But I'd be a little vague, but I would say, yeah, that's the intent.
So with the intent of
using the word intent,
of giving additional funding next year if it works out or something.
If feasible.
If feasible, yeah.
Give ourselves an out there.
Okay.
'Cause
Okay,
we'll be in the same place next year.
Yes, we will.
Parks and Rec money to the boat harbor, right? I mean, the other Parks and Rec things will probably, if we have similar funding, be a lot less to zero next year in order to get another 150 to the boat harbor.
And I'll say this, I'd like to see the city put some skin in the game for the boat harbor and let us fund maybe some playgrounds or something else, because I think that's going to have value in getting this tax renewed.
I can assure you the city will be putting all the skin in the game for the boat harbor that we can. So
yeah, and I believe that. But what I'm saying is, I think that if they could put some in, and the citizens would see that the city's committed with some of their money, and we can put some of our money next year into some other things from other places, I think that it would be a better balance for both programs. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
Laurel, and I think that's happened. We've seen that very successfully on a lot of other projects where things like clearing and grubbing, grading, and drainage, in-kind labor, that's where I think we'll see that, and those guys bust their tails to do that for us. So
absolutely.
I think we'll see it.
Yeah, I see that.
Other questions, Laurel?
So
No, I think those were all the ones I had for now.
this is a point of clarification on the boat harbor. In order to get to where we need, we're planning on doing about 356,000 from the city of impact fees and in kind, which is just labor and other materials and other stuff that we can just do on our end. So that's part of the current mixture to get us to the funding level we need.
Okay, and that's great. I just think that it needs to, as people are asking questions, we need to make sure that they know that some's coming from the city, some's coming from PARC, some's coming from the state, some, you know what I mean? So that it's a broad selection or whatever. So I'll try to have this report out to you guys by Monday, hopefully, if all the stars align, or a little bit, maybe even before. And then if you guys could read it and get it back to me, I need to have it to you before Friday, right, Camden?
Yeah. Okay. Thursday would be great.
Next Friday, right?
Yeah. Next Thursday
okay.
would be perfect.
Next Thursday, okay. If you guys, I'll have it to you guys by Monday and maybe before, and if you can look through it and send it back, then I'll look through it and send it back one more time, and then we'll get it submitted. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay.
I will
I have a
accept it.
quick question, Brian, if that's okay.
Sure.
We've talked in the past about some recommendations to council on disbursement of funds and how those funds would be handled as far as means and methods of how that goes. Is this an appropriate time to talk about that, or in our next meeting? How do you want to approach that? Or do we write those down and send them to you, or how would you like to see those?
Yeah, send those to me. We can do that once this memo is completed and submitted, and we can certainly handle it then.
Okay.
I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I-
All right.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate the hard work. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
All right. See ya.
Night.
Thanks, Candace.